The Whisper in the Dark. If you've walked with us before, you know this is not an ordinary podcast. And if this is your first time crossing the threshold, welcome. You've found the Lilith Verse, a mythology reborn, one goddess at a time. Here the night listens back. The candles don't just burn, they breathe. Every name you've ever whispered into a dream still echoes somewhere between shadow and flame. And all of the names we've spoken here, Ishtar, Ereshkigal, Hecate, and Anna, there is one that's called to more of you than any other, Lilith. Whenever we tell her story, the lights in the comments come alive. Viewers lean closer, messages arrive at midnight. Voices tremble with fascination. Some ask for her history, others for her meaning. But the most common request, the one that always returns, is this: tell us about the succubus. Even after thousands of years, it's her shadow that captures us, the dark goddess who defied heaven and was punished with immortality, the first woman who said no and was reimagined as a nightmare, the one whose lips were forbidden but whose name has never stopped being whispered. Why do we hunger for her? Why do we circle back, century after century, to this myth of the woman who would not submit? Perhaps because somewhere, deep inside, we suspect the stories told about her were never really about her at all. They were about us, the fears we inherited, the desires we deny, the power we still don't know how to hold. They called her Succubus, night demon, dream stealer. But every accusation hides a confession, and every monster carries a secret. Once she was divine, mother, lover, and the breath between stars. Before the priests and the poets made her dangerous, she was sacred, a symbol of life itself, unashamed and ungoverned. When the sacred feminine refused to kneel, the storytellers gave her new wings, black as midnight, veined with fire. They called her wicked because she was free. Tonight we follow her flight through scripture and shadow, through the fever dreams of men who mistook longing for danger. We'll trace her from the wheels of Sumer to the ink of the Middle Ages, through the language of myth and the language of fear. Because every myth of the succubus, behind every tale of temptation, possession, and ruin, there's another story waiting to be heard, the story of desire reclaimed. What if the succubus is not a thief, but a mirror? What if she doesn't drain your soul, but shows you where it's gone hiding? What if she is not here to seduce you, but to wake you? Tonight we open that mirror. We'll ask what it means when the sacred becomes the thing we're taught to fear, when a goddess becomes a ghost story, and freedom wears the mask of sin. So settle in. Let the room darken, just enough for the imagination to wake. The night is waiting, and it's older than shame. There's a whisper in the dark, and it's speaking her name. The first breath. Origins of the succubus. Long before the word succubus was whispered with fear or fascination, there was simply the wind. It moved like breath across the deserts of Sumer, slipping through temple doors, stirring the reeds along the rivers. The people there spoke of the lily-two, the night winds, daughters of air and dream. They were not demons, not yet. They were movement, mystery, desire given shape. The lily-two belonged to no one. They were said to visit the lonely, the restless, the ones whose hearts had forgotten how to be still. In their presence, the air itself trembled, part pleasure, part dread. Some stories said they brought fertility to barren soil, others that they slipped through bedroom windows to drink the breath of sleeping men. But in the oldest texts, carved into the soft clay of Uruk, they are something gentler, echoes of the goddess's sigh, the remnants of her ecstatic power. Before she was a monster, she was divine. Inanna, Queen of Heaven, mistress of both desire and destruction, breathed life into them. Her temples hummed with song and incense. Her priestesses sang hymns to the sacred act of creation, and the lily-two danced in the spaces between flame and shadow. They were her messengers, her muses, her mirror. When Inanna descended into the underworld, the lily-two followed her, invisible, ungoverned, riding the winds of grief. They were the breath left behind in her absence, the sigh that outlasted the goddess herself. But gods, like empires, do not remain unbroken. When Akkad conquered Sumer, Inanna shed her name and became Ishtar. When Babylon rose and fell, her temples were reduced to dust, her hymns scattered. The lily-two survived in whispers and half-remembered prayers, crossing borders like refugees of faith. They carried fragments of her defiance, her desire, her refusal to stay contained. By the time their names reached the lands of exile and scripture, they had already begun to change. In the scrolls of the Hebrews, a single name gleamed faintly through the centuries: Lilith. In the book of Isaiah, she is a passing shadow. The desert creatures shall meet with the hyenas, and the Lilith shall find her place of rest. A single word surrounded by wilderness, but that was enough. The word took root. In the later stories, she is given form, the first woman, made of the same dust as Adam, breathing the same divine air. But she would not lie beneath him. She would not yield her body, her breath, or her name. And so she spoke the ineffable name of God, the secret syllables of creation, and in that utterance remembered her wings. She left Eden not as an exile, but as a storm. From the red earth she rose, trailing the scent of paradise and rebellion, and flew into the empty places beyond the world's edge. And there the stories began to turn against her. The rabbis said she coupled with demons. The poets said she crept into men's dreams. The priests said she killed children and drank desire. But beneath those condemnations, something older still whispered, a memory of freedom, of fire unbound. They had to call her a succubus. It was the only word they had for a woman who took what she wanted and gave nothing back that she did not choose. Because when Lilith flew from Eden, she did not fall. She ascended, becoming what men could not name without trembling. The succubus, fear, desire, and dream. When Lilith left Eden, she carried more than wings. She carried the echo of a question no one dared to answer. What if desire is not a sin, but a language? Centuries later, that question still unsettled the world. The empires had changed. The gods had traded crowns. Yet the fear of a woman who owned her hunger remained. And so, in the candle smoke of monasteries and the fever of midnight sermons, a new name took shape: Succubus. The dream eaters. In the Middle Ages, monks wrote of women who came to them in sleep. soft as breath, heavy as guilt. They said these spirits lie upon their chests, stole their seed, sapped their strength. The chroniclers gave them form, cold skin, perfumed hair, eyes like polished amber. Every scratch of the quill deepened the legend until the succubus was no longer rumor but doctrine, proof that temptation itself had fangs. Yet if you read between the lines of those trembling confessions, you'll hear something else, a whisper of pleasure, a moment of warmth that the pen refuses to name. The succubus became a scapegoat for the body's honesty, the shadow that the holy could not bear to claim. When desire broke through the walls of discipline, it was easier to call it a demon than to admit it was divine. The fear of the mirror. Fear has always needed a face, and the succubus offered a perfect one. She embodied everything a rigid world denied: sexuality without permission, joy without punishment, power without apology. She did not wait to be chosen, she arrived. She looked upon humanity, not with hunger, but with recognition, because she knew the secret we still pretend not to know, that the line between sanctity and surrender is written in sand, and every tide will blur it. To the men who dreamed of her, she was both lover and judge. They woke gasping, unsure whether they had been blessed or defiled. To the woman who heard her story, she was a warning: stay small, stay still, or you will be called by her name. But stories are seeds. Plant them deep enough, and they grow into something else. Over centuries, the succubus changed again. In whispered folk tales and forbidden poems, she began to shed her horns and reclaim her wings. A few dared to wonder, what if she does not come to drain life, but to return it? What if she is not the thief, but the teacher? The psychology of shadows. Modern tongues call her archetype, the uninvited guest in the psyche. In dreams, she is the shape of suppressed desire. In therapy, the voice that says, I want, therefore I am. Carl Jung would have recognized her as shadow, the part of the self we banish for the comfort of virtue. And yet she waits. She appears in our fantasies, in our art, in every gasp of curiosity we try to smother. The old monks saw her as a weight on the chest. Today we might call it sleep paralysis, a body caught between dreaming and waking. But perhaps the truth lies somewhere stranger. Perhaps the paralysis is not terror, but reverence. The body remembering that it once trembled before the sacred. Desire as revelation. If the succubus teaches anything, it is that desire itself is holy. Not the hunger that consumes, but the kind that reveals. She arrives to show us where the walls still stand inside us, where shame has built its altars. When she whispers, it is not a lure, but a challenge. Can you meet your longing without bowing to it? Can you love what you fear without needing to destroy it? In her embrace, pleasure and dread become twins. She reminds us that creation and destruction share the same heartbeat, that to touch another soul is always to risk being changed. The whisper returns, and so the succubus endures, not because she steals dreams, but because she lives inside them. Every time someone names her, she grows a little less monstrous, a little more human. She is the confession that refuses to die, that even holiness is hungry, and even darkness can adore. When the candle flickers tonight, look at the flame. See how it leans, how it dances, how it consumes and creates in the same breath. That is her nature. That is ours. Lilith's secrets, reclaiming the succubus. For thousands of years, she has waited at the edge of the firelight, half remembered, half feared. The priests called her cursed. The poets called her muse. The dreamers simply called her mine. But Lilith has never belonged to anyone. She belongs to the moment when a woman's breath becomes a spell, when desire stops asking permission and begins to name itself wholly. The secret beneath the accusation. Every myth is an accusation written by the victorious. If you trace the ink long enough, you find the confession beneath it. The demonization of Lilith, of the succubus, was never about evil. It was about containment. She represented the hunger that could not be domesticated for pleasure, for voice, for choice. So her body became a battlefield where fear and fascination met. To call her a succubus was to chain a goddess with a word. Yet words, like chains, can rust. Say her name often enough, and the links begin to fall away. From predator to initiator. When you look past the trembling legends, a pattern emerges. The succubus does not devour for cruelty's sake. She arrives as an initiator, an alchemist of boundaries. Those who meet her must decide what part of themselves they are willing to face. To encounter Lilith is to stand at the threshold between shame and revelation. She will not soothe you. She will ask, "What do you truly desire?" And she will wait while you stumble for an honest answer. In that moment, she ceases to be predator and becomes priestess. She holds the mirror, but she does not decide what you see. The fire reclaimed. In the modern tongue, we call it empowerment, but she would call it remembrance. The same fire that once burned witches is the light she carries in her hands. It is the spark that says, pleasure is not profanity, and sovereignty is not sin. To reclaim the succubus is to reclaim the holiness of wanting. Not the hunger that consumes others, but the hunger that awakens the self. The creative, erotic pulse that says, I am alive, and that is miracle enough. When you stop apologizing for that pulse, you begin to speak her language. It is the oldest dialect of creation. It sounds like breathing. Love without chains. Lilith's great secret is that love was never meant to be obedience. It was meant to be recognition. Two flames bending toward each other, neither extinguishing the other's light. The stories that called her dangerous were written by those who mistook freedom for chaos. But chaos is simply life unedited. The universe itself was born from it. And every relationship that dares honesty, and every yes that includes the right to say no, she smiles, unseen. That is her temple now, not the ruins in the sand, but the moment you choose to belong to yourself. Shadow and synthesis. Lilith teaches that power without tenderness becomes cruelty, and tenderness without power becomes martyrdom. She offers both, fused together like sun and eclipse. To walk with her is to practice integration, to let the sacred and the profane hold hands and realize they were never strangers. She does not ask you to worship her. She asks you to stop dividing yourself in two, to stop calling your light good and your dark unforgivable, to understand that the soul, like the night sky, is made of both. her final whisper. If you listen closely, you can still hear her, not outside your window, but in the rhythm of your pulse, in the sudden heat when truth brushes against denial. She whispers, I was never your enemy. I was your reflection. And perhaps that is why the myth of the succubus refuses to die, because we need her still. We need the reminder that desire is not the opposite of divinity. It is one of its oldest names. So when the dark comes, when you feel the old shame stir like dust, light a candle. Watch the flame lead toward the air that feeds it. That too is love, a hunger that illuminates instead of devours. Whisper her name once, softly as you exhale. Feel how the room changes. The fear lessens. The air warms. The goddess of the forbidden smiles, not in victory, but in recognition. You've finally understood her secret. You were never the victim of her hunger. You were always its equal. The Night Mirror. If you wish to walk beside Lilith for a while, not in story, but in spirit, begin here. You don't need an altar, only a candle, and the courage to meet your own gaze. Light the flame. Watch it steady itself. Notice how it does not apologize for burning, how it consumes and illuminates in the same breath. That is her lesson made visible. Now take a mirror, any mirror. Hold it so the candle's glow catches your reflection. Don't rush to recognize yourself. Just look. Let the shadows move across your face. Let the light find its way through them. This, too, is a kind of revelation. Ask softly, not out loud, but in thought, like a secret only the night can hear. What have I denied myself in the name of being good? What hunger waits behind that locked door inside me? You may feel her then, not as a present outside you, but as a warmth beneath your ribs, a quiet acknowledgement that you have been seen. If tears come, let them. If laughter rises, let it. She doesn't ask for control, only truth. When you're ready, blow out the flame. Watch the smoke curl upward, twisting like wings. That's her way of saying goodbye, or maybe see you soon. Because Lilith doesn't linger. She doesn't stay to be worshipped. She passes through, like the wind that first gave her form, leaving you a little less afraid of your own reflection. As the room cools, listen for her final whisper, soft as breath. You were never meant to choose between holiness and hunger. You were meant to remember they were born together. Thank you for walking with me through the dark tonight. May your dreams be honest. May your power be gentle. And may you never again mistake your fire for sin. This has been the Lilith Verse, a mythology reborn, one goddess at a time.